Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or it's 2 a.m. Good bed already. This is Eagle Eyes on Tech, and I am Eagle Falcon. After even more technical difficulties than last week, I thought we hit our technical difficulties cap last week, but here we are with somehow even more. Joining me with me again is Regret the Van. How are you doing today?
I am doing just fine. I even shaved.
Ooh, shaving.
Mm-hmm. Fancy.
Now, if only I could figure out a way to get rid of these stupid buttons, then my life would be perfect. But they just won't go away, like obnoxious little nonsense. Anyway, I want to start off with one of the strangest additions to Twitch TV. So this was talked about, but nobody really knew what it really meant at the time. And that's Twitch communities. What this is this is supposed to complement the Twitch teams that already exists. If you're a Twitch streamer, whether it be broadcasting games, broadcasting tech videos, or some combination of the two, you could, if you so desire, join a team. And then it would say next to your name, you're part of this stream team, and then they could click on that and see everyone else that's in that same team. It's supposed to be a way to gain exposure. The problem with teams is that only partnered streamers can make a team, which then guaranteed smaller streamers could only get on board with a bigger streamer. So that was always considered a downfall of teams. Communities is supposed to be basically the same thing, except anyone can make a community and nobody has to ask permission to get into a community. When you start your stream in Twitch, you then set in your stream name, what you're streaming, and then just below that you can say what community you're part of. That's all well and good. I don't know how this has any prayer of helping.
Actually, I can. For example, certain games have a huge following. Hearthstone, League of Legends, Dota, any of the MOBA type games have huge followings, but then you get the games that are not that big of followings. For example, Space Engineers. At one point, apparently, I was one of 6 people who was doing a Space Engineers stream on a regular basis. So grouping with those other 6 people who were doing the Space Engineer stream would actually be helpful, not only to us, but to their audiences as all around. Because, I'm going offline, but this streamer is coming online. Go watch him. So I could see where this could be helpful.
Here's the reason why I don't, though. One of the biggest problems with the teams is that very few people ever looked at the team. Almost everyone that says, like, oh, hey, look, he's part of that streamer team, whoop-de-doo. Nobody ever went and say like, after the number one Alex ends his stream, just go... They never click on the team and then see who is streaming next after he finishes. They would normally just either go on, try to view someone else, or, more than likely, because this has been a thing that's existed in Twitch for the longest time, they would just stick with the raid. Because after every single stream from anyone who has an audience, well, most people who have an audience, they then go raid someone else that's similar to them. Communities is just going to end up being even less popular and even more of a cluster mess than the teams already are. Because you could be part of a speedrun team, nobody's going to check. There's already like 5 or 6 or even 7 speedrun communities. So which one do you pick? Which one has a bigger prayer of getting you even one more viewer?
and that is a potential mess, because I've looked at the speedrunners, like, I don't even know how many there are out there, so actually thanks for that there's about 6 of them.
700 million. I have no idea.
But,
some disgustingly huge number.
Yeah. I also don't quite understand the point of speedrunning, so...
To impressively glitch a game and master a game.
I can understand mastering a game, but to glitch a game, that's just making an exploit in some shoddy programming.
Yeah, honestly, as far as speedrunnings, the only one I actually can really appreciate are the RPG speedrunners. Ones that also don't exploit, like, finding out, like, oh, hey, look, you equip this combination and only be at this level, the warrior deals infinite damage forever, or something crazy like that. I don't know if that actually exists or not. I just made that up.
I don't think so, but I know that one of the speedrun glitches was with a PlayStation 2 Ratchet and Clank game that you could beat the game from the start by essentially glitching over a mountain and landing on the final boss, and then triggering the end of the game from that.
I'm also just dawning back to watching the Game Grumps play Sonic Boom, where there was a pause glitch that let you continuously double jump forever as long as you kept pausing in the middle of the second jump.
May that game forever...
It's dead now. It's dead, Jim.
Die. Just may it rest in peace, because that game was so bad.
That it was. Now my thing's gone. Now it's back. Everything's fixed now. It was broken for a bit, but now it's back. So, this is now out. Communities has been out for a grand total of, I want to say 3 days. Maybe 2. I think this would be the 3rd day it's out. Because okay. I know I was able to set a community for Thursday's stream. So yeah, this would be the 3rd day.
So I'll be playing with this tonight when Gibberish Name and I go to do our Skyrim stream.
Whee! But like you can even see right now, we're right now listed as the tech support community. It was the community that had the most number of viewers on there that had the word tech in it. There's no new audience here. There's no one. It's our regulars right now.
Yeah. A.O. Shaw just pointed out that the hang-up buttons went away.
Hooray! Hey, fick it. Somehow. And now they're back.
Oh, why'd you go and break it?
Because I have to keep switching between the two of us. Because it refuses to do it automatically.
Yeah, for reasons.
Like some kind of asshole.
Oh wait, wouldn't that be both of us?
So let's move on to our next topic, and that's regarding Twitch mobile broadcasting. This is one, there hasn't really been too much of an update on it yet. But I want to discuss a little bit about who really started the mobile broadcasting. When did it actually really take off? I mean, the first two I can think of that really pushed out the mobile broadcasting was Periscope and Meerkat. That would sound about right to you, correct?
Yeah, that does.
So, now, and this was announced a while back, Twitch eventually wanting to put mobile broadcasting in. This was when they announced their IRL subcategory that you can broadcast as, which is basically just live vlogging. And this was also when they updated their community guidelines as to what talk shows are considered, that I'm not going to lie, I strongly disagree with one of the changes they made there. And we talked about that earlier in the broadcast.
which means that I can no longer go on rants on Twitch. Oh wait, that's not something I did anyways, but now I can't.
Actually, I think all my rants were pre-recorded, so that doesn't affect that either. That still annoys me though. I mean, just because there is a large number of talk shows out there outside of Twitch that are live. That is one guy and a producer. It's extremely common. Not on Twitch though.
No.
God forbid.
I think on YouTube, well, YouTube there's hundreds of them.
Oh, of course. Of course they are, which we're also broadcasting on. But the other reason I wanted to bring up the fact that Twitch is planning on doing mobile broadcasting, and a lot of people are saying that it's to compete with Facebook Live. I disagree. I think it's to get in on what Periscope is doing. Just like Facebook Live is getting on what Periscope is doing. And just like YouTube now launching YouTube mobile live streaming is also getting on what Periscope is doing. So, moving on to our next topic, which is exactly that. YouTube now launches in their YouTube app for mobile live streaming. Never before has so much data been destroyed so quickly. Rip all the data caps.
Well, considering that I ran out of data cap just looking at stuff on Reddit, I hate to see how fast this would go through.
In fact, here, just for kicks, I'm going to reset my data meter right now on my little network widget here. At the end of the broadcast, which admittedly is like, oh wow, we're already 10 minutes into it. Which is already 10 minutes into it. Let's see how much what would that be? 80% of the broadcast? How much 80% of the broadcast takes up in upload data? Now, here's the other thing that I want to bring up with this. I don't know if you know, Regret, how bad YouTube live streaming is. Ooh, you even avoid Periscope.
Yes. I avoid a lot of the mobile live streaming just because of the amount of data it would eat up.
I've only looked at a couple Periscope live streams just to see what they were. I don't understand how it's considered content. It would.
Let me guess. A lot of people doing duck faces and live streaming selfies.
They were basically animated selfies.
About what I expected, actually. Again, just yet another reason why I avoided live streaming, mobile live streaming.
Yeah, I mean, the software I use to broadcast on multiple outlets at once, I have Periscope checked on there, but fun fact, I don't show up on Periscope because the stream quality is too good to be accepted on Periscope. I'm not even exaggerating when I say this. Periscope requires you to be less than 720p for your resolution output. In addition, if your upload rate is more than 2.8 megs up, it denies your connection.
Okay, so they're already throttling their data internally on this on their end, which I guess makes some sense that they know that they're going to go through their customers' data really fast. But for example, okay, my tablet, which now is currently festooned with batteries, Um,
Why?
find all the magnets.
Oh my god.
Um, is a Wi-Fi only device. It has no SIM card slot in it at all.
Mhm.
So it is a mobile device. So if I want to do Periscope streaming, I'm being punished because my device does not have a SIM card. I'm
Now,
being limited.
now, in that defense, there are ways to get around the Periscope limitations. You can stream to Periscope with a program like XSplit or OBS. There is a way to get in through the Periscope app, find your stream key, set up XSplit or OBS in such a manner that you can stream that way. But you have to be basically what every other stream service would consider subpar connection ratings.
Yeah.
I don't even...
Possibly issues with that. They just don't even want to risk that you'd have somebody doing like a 720p stream, thinking they're on Wi-Fi, finding out no, they're actually on data, and then getting smacked with a $1,000 phone bill for going over. This does happen. It even happens with sites like Imgur, which is just a picture viewing, but you can go through that content so fast, and this is just down, this is not up, but down, that you can burn through your data in a day. Less than, depending on what you're looking at.
Fun fact, already just in the 5 minutes that I reset this thing, I have downloaded 350 megabytes worth of data and uploaded 153.
Okay, that's about right.
Just in the 5 minutes I've been streaming. Just in the 5 minutes since I reset the current. So, we actually got sidetracked because I wanted to talk about how terrible YouTube live streaming is in the background. It is just awful. I'm not even exaggerating when I say this. 9 times out of 10 when I'm connecting to YouTube Live, and it took me forever to tweak the settings just right, it would constantly complain that it was losing bits, that it wasn't getting a solid connection, and this was going through the Restream service, which I send one signal up, Restream then simultaneously recast that to all of the various services, the exact same thing that I gave them. So Twitch is getting the same thing as YouTube. Twitch is broadcasting it fine, going, everything's green here. Same thing with Hitbox, and Beam is too stupid to know what the heck is good for it. And YouTube's just like, I don't know what, ow. It was just painful.
Yeah. I actually haven't messed with the YouTube side of my channel that much, so I haven't fiddled with it, but from what you're saying, it's I already got gray hairs. I don't need more.
It took a bit, but I finally got it working, but oh my god, it was just a pain. I can only imagine how bad YouTube live mobile streaming is going to be. Or maybe they made that one work and just decided, you know, the main thing that all the content creators want to use, the primary one using actual studio equipment, yeah, let's not fix that side.
Which seems kind of it's counterintuitive.
But oddly YouTube-like.
It is. It is very, very much a YouTube thing.
Yay!
Because, you know, who knows that they may be right in just kind of letting the major content production equipment kind of get sidelined and focus on this little bit that may actually make them a lot more money in the end.
That would actually be the fun rules, because I'm not sure how many people realize this. YouTube's trying to roll out more tools that match what Twitch partners get. Like Twitch partners get like Twitch partners have the sub button. YouTube's trying to roll out something very similar to the Twitch sub button, where you pay $5, get emotes, etc., etc., and then a cut of that goes to the streamer, on top of something very similar to bits. I'm willing to bet YouTube never catches up to Twitch in that regard, even though YouTube has all the tools to catch up with Twitch.
Also, one of the things I'm going to point this out about YouTube in particular, YouTube's biggest bandwidth in terms of what people watch isn't streams. It's
true.
Music.
Yeah.
YouTube is one of the largest music libraries out there now, despite what Rhea tries to do and all of the content bots keep issuing false flags. It doesn't matter. The videos keep coming back, and the music library continues to expand. So,
well, what ends up happening, and I've been the victim of this several times, is that the 99 point infinity of the music flags don't take down the video. What they do instead is then say, look, you're clearly using this music from this content creator, your ad revenue is going to them. Or we're monetizing your video that is just the music for this content creator, and that ad money's going to them.
Which is actually a much more reasonable way of doing it. The original poster still gets the views, which still factors into YouTube's view algorithms. It's a compromise, and it's a good compromise.
Until some content creator tries to claim that abandoned video game music that was made for a fan project is actually their rap, and then all my videos get flagged at the end of it for containing the actual source that they stole for their crappy rap, and I end up fighting it and end up winning every time, but it's still obnoxious. I'm sorry, I'm venting about my own personal problems, aren't I?
Yes, you are.
It's still really annoying. Let's actually get off this topic, because we've been on it a lot. I want to go on.
Just pointing at YouTube just as an example. I'm gonna share my screen. That YouTube video, that music, I cannot get that music here in the U.S.
Ha!
I've looked.
You know, here's a fun one for you. One of my viewers, Aoshaw, for the longest time, he kept asking me what I ended my streams with, and I end each of my streams with a really old song called "Happy Trails" by Roy Rogers.
Okay, yes, that should be readily available. It's pretty old.
It's blocked in the UK. I tried sending him the exact link for what I use, and it's blocked in his area.
That's... okay.
Figure that one out.
I could actually see, just like it's probably an old echo of the region system, region locking.
Yeah.
Which is still a thing.
Oh, and actually, Aoshaw in the chat did want to correct. It's only that particular version of Happy Trails. I use the one from 1975.
Okay.
Not the original from the year 2000 BC or whatever the heck the original Happy Trails was in. I'm kidding. It's like 1950 something.
Yeah, that is an old song.
Yeah, but no, I use the but no, I use the 75 version. All right, let's move on
Yes.
to Oculus Rift.
Ah, the beleaguered Oculus.
Last week you told me that they had this thing set up in the Wauwatosa Best Buy. I unfortunately completely forgot to go check it out.
Mm-hmm.
I still haven't had a chance to check it out. It might in fact be too late because hundreds of these Oculus Rift demos in Best Buys are being shut down.
I haven't been by that Best Buy recently, so I don't know if it's still there. But it would not surprise me if it was shut down. While that is one of the bigger Best Buys in our area, the article does point out some very good things about why people might be a bit leery on trying this headset on, and one of them is public health. You're putting this headset on that was being worn by somebody else. Well, I'm pretty sure you've run across people, Nick, that have some significant BO issues, and that does put people off.
I don't know what you're talking about.
And there are particular things that can be transferred through.
I don't know what you're ringworm talking about.
Ringworm is one of them. Since this is a product that is worn on the head,
But
lice can be spread through that.
That it can. Here's the funny thing. Of all the things I've heard about people kind of reluctant about the VR thing, that's one of the last things I ever hear people talking about. It's kind of interesting that this article and several others talk about the health risks of the demos, and they seem to be the only ones in this bubble talking about the health risks. It makes some sense, but it appears to be the last thing on a lot of people's minds.
Yeah. The more likely thing is it's not it's not the health thing. That's what just the article is. It is, you have people who come in there, they're after probably a very specific thing. They might be after a game, they might be after a replacement keyboard. They're not there to try something new. They know what they want. Get out of their way. They just want this one thing.
Mm-hmm.
And the demos do take up a bit of time. And more off-putting is when you find out the price of the Oculus.
Yeah,
with the
that's
controllers.
Yeah. Unjust Banana was just saying that. That's the other thing I was gonna bring up. It is still a stupid high cost of entry. It really, really is.
Mm-hmm. And that's not just including just the VR hardware itself, but your machine has to be VR, has to be able to run the VR well, otherwise the illusion falls apart.
Oh, absolutely.
So you have an even more expensive cost of entry that could be up to pretty much $800 for the headset, and now to bring your machine up to VR ready or buy a new machine could be up to another $2,000 on top of that.
I've done a lot of research, and so has a lot of other reliable PC builders. There's some people I just don't trust their math or their intelligence when picking parts, but PC Per and I both pretty much agree that it's about $850 to build a bare minimum spec VR ready machine. And
okay.
Easily the most expensive component there is a minimum GTX 970.
Yeah. When I did the demo, when I downloaded the software to verify to see if my Dell T5500 was VR ready, it actually had no problem with my graphics card, had no problem with my RAM. It did not like the processors.
Oh, I bet. It looked at that thing and was just like, what are you doing? What is
Actually,
this?
it didn't complain about the fact that they were Xeons. It complained that they were too slow. So if those Xeons were clocked at, say, 3.2 gigahertz, it probably would run.
I'm more thinking that it's just because the weird thing is that if you're using something like an older workstation, especially one that's dual processor, the chipsets are a lot funnier. Because I can't remember exactly which one it is, but you have one south bridge and two north bridges, or something like that.
Effectively.
It's not even effectively. You actually do. You can actually look on the board and actually count them. You just go, huh. Why are there 5 chips on this board?
The second north bridge is mounted on the daughter card with the second processor.
No, the T5500's another special build. I still hate Dell for the way they did that generation.
Yeah, most multi-processor systems I've seen, since this isn't new, multiple, it goes back to Pentium Pros.
Oh yeah, no, it's nothing new.
Pentium Pros were bad because those motherboards had the dual north-south combos for each chip, but later when it moved on to the more advanced processors, even the Pentium 3 actually had a commercially available dual processor workstation, only had one north bridge.
My point was, because of the odd chipset layout, some benchmarking tools can reads that weird and just goes, let's just test one of the processors, because I don't know what the hell's going on over in daughterboard land. Or in
that is true. Things do get weird.
Yeah, and that was one problem I always had with the T74-400. I don't have it currently because I haven't went and made my rig a true abomination and dropped another 6 core in there.
So,
but it's just it was just more of a. I'm kind of surprised these are already coming down. They're trying to say that it's because it's just a holiday thing, because it might be a health thing that's turning them. I think it's more of the fact that the only people that are really interested in virtual reality are the tech heads. The common folk who would... I hate using that term, but I'm going to say it again. The common folk look at this thing, and the first thing that pops in their head is to point at whoever the heck is wearing one and shout nerd at the top of their lungs. It is really off-putting to see this thing.
I'm actually pointing out, in my case, I'm going to point out that the cost of entry is so high.
Yeah, that doesn't help either for something that already at first glance is not very appealing.
So, for $800, you can get a decent used gaming rig that can run everything you want. For that $800, I could think of plenty of other things for me to spend that $800 on.
Like an iPad.
That would be infinitely more useful than a headset.
Or 2 iPads.
Or a significant chunk of a Surface.
And Boone in the chat just gave me the word I was struggling to search for before I idiotically said common folk. It would be the average consumer.
Yes, that would be the correct word. Thank you, Boone.
Whoops! Just a little late there, unfortunately. But enough of the Oculus. Let's move on to some really in-depth nerd talk. And that being the brand new NVIDIA Quadros that have been released. So I don't know if you had a chance to look at the specs of these yet.
Okay.
But so far we've had there have been no GTX 10 series equivalents of Quadros yet. We recently now just had the P5000, the P6000, And easily the most fascinating GPU, the Quadro GP100, have now all launched. Now, here's what's fascinating about these. The P5000 is basically a GTX 1070 equivalent for professionals. The P6000 is the GTX 1080 equivalent for professionals. And those all run on the GPU codename GP102. The way NVIDIA numbers their graphic cards, it's G, then the first letter of the code name, in this case Pascal, so GP. The 1 is the revision number. In this case, there's only one revision of Pascal. And then after that, the 2 digits, the higher they are, the lower end the card is. So a GP107 is much lower end than a GP102. The GP100 is always declared as whatever they think is the most powerful they can get out of this iteration of the architecture.
Okay.
So, what we have here is that we have 2 Quadro cards. These are the cards that you're never going to see in a gaming rig unless you are literally insane, not figuratively.
Yeah, what are you doing? Because Quattros are not built for gaming.
They are not. They are also not priced for gaming. Quadros are always crazy expensive because they are designed for scientific research or heavy CAD use.
Yes.
Or animating the next Marvel movie.
Or Pixar or Dreamcast or Disney.
No, they're all suckers and use Mac. I mean, what?
any Japanese studios, because I was watching one of the anime movie, and in the credit rolls it actually listed HP.
Ha! Yeah, HP right now owns the workstation market. Unfortunately, Dell kind of fell out of place because of the 500 generation of their workstations, which had to coincide with HP's amazing release of the Z series workstations. Dell screwed up and HP did something right for once in their life.
Yeah.
But enough about the history of workstations. There's a few details in the Quadro GP100 that are actually kind of interesting. For starters, I was originally going to say that the best gaming card is a Quadro now instead of a GeForce. However, if you look at some of the details of the card, this actually for once isn't the case. The benchmarks that would matter for the GP100 to actually game is actually lower than the GP102. The GP102, in case you forgot, is the graphic card, is the chip inside the GTX 1080.
Yeah.
What is interesting about the GP100 though is the memory interface and also the fact it is not using GDDR. What?
HBM2.
It's using HBM.
That is not a memory format I am familiar with.
This was actually first introduced in AMD's Fury cards. And everyone thought this was going to give AMD the edge finally, and then AMD screwed up.
That's what AMD does.
They need to stop doing that, really. They really, really need to stop screwing up. Please stop screwing up, AMD, please. If you're listening. But in any case, where this thing is incredible in what it does is in its where is it? Watch, knowing my luck, this actually doesn't have what I need. It's in its double precision floating points, wherever the heck that is. Yep, and I can't find the chart now for it. But
of course, that's how that's always going to work.
It always works that way. It is hands down much more precise in its calculations than any other Quadro card before it. Hands down. Far more precise than the Maxwell cards before it. And far more precise than any other graphic card there is, period. One of these cards does the work of two of the Titan equivalent Quadro cards of last year.
So some serious computing that you can throw into your machine if you happen to have a large enough wallet to afford these cards.
Yes. But here's one other thing I want to point out. This card introduces two new technologies. One, of course, being the HBM that we just talked about. The other, if you actually scroll down, is actually one that's not really talked about a whole lot that I want a lot more information about. On the actual picture of the card, where they show some of the specs from NVIDIA, they have not one, but two of these massive bridges connecting two of these cards together.
You can actually click on the picture and make it bigger. It gets really big.
I'm glad that decided to work on the third click.
Okay,
Yeah.
It doesn't work for you, but it worked for me. But yeah, I'm looking at those, and what it says is multi-GPU, NVLink, two-way.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering if this is a second generation of SLI or a replacement to SLI.
That's what I'm thinking as well. SLI is finally, ever since the dawn of the dinosaurs, or whenever the heck SLI first came out, is finally getting updated.
Yeah. And by the way, SLI came out sometime in the late 90s. Not from NVIDIA. I
was close. Dawn of the Dinosaurs, 1990s, same thing, basically. But in the other picture, assuming that my thing will load quick enough, these connectors are enormous. Like, normally the SLI bridge is, like, maybe half an inch.
Mm-hmm.
These connectors look like small PCI Express connectors. Like, about 8x length.
Yeah, 4 to 8x. What... And actually, I should probably understand why NVIDIA might want to replace SLI is there's only so much data that they can shove over an SLI bus.
Correct.
And anything else has to go through the PCI bus.
In fact, one of the reasons that Crossfire actually kept up with AMD's time so long is the fact that Crossfire not only communicates across the Crossfire bridge, but also through the PCI Express bus itself through software. Mm-hmm. SLI did not.
Yeah, SLI you would have the cards have to talk to each other through the system RAM, if they even could. But if NVIDIA is doing what I think they're going to do with these two cards, which is they're going to do pretty much a miniature PCI bus running on top of the two cards, they could probably push an 8x PCI speed specification down between those two cards. So on top of the 16x specification to the motherboard, they're pushing another 8 on top of it, which What was the 8x speed spec?
Enough. I mean, really, when push comes to shove, even like 1x PCI Express or even 4x PCI Express is just more than the computer can think most days. 8x is pretty damn close.
Okay, so 8x is about 4 gigabytes per second, give or take.
Bits or bytes?
Bytes.
That's insane. That is literally insane.
Well, if you go to, like, say, 16x, it gets ridiculous.
Well, GPUs need all the bandwidth. All of it. Which then also just raises the whole question about whether Thunderbolt can actually keep up with what 16x can do. But in any case, that is what we're seeing from the Quadro area, and and this is actually going to make for a very interesting release later on in the year, when I believe it's Voltra is the next NVIDIA architecture. When that releases later on, that would be the 11 series. It also seems kind of weird that we're already talking about Voltra before there's even a 1080 Ti.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like, wait a minute, we haven't gone through the full iteration of the 10 series yet, have we?
We haven't. They're missing a lot. They're missing a good chunk of numbers. I don't think there's any GT numbers at all. We do have a 1050 and a 1050 Ti. There's not really a 1060 Ti, but there is. Just on the grounds that there's a 1063 gig and a 1066 gig.
Okay.
There's a 1070 and a 1080. The 1080 is considered the king. But there's no 1080 Ti, and there hasn't been an X90 graphic card in forever. Honestly, probably for the best.
Mm-hmm.
There is a Titan using Pascal, but nobody sells it anymore.
Probably because Titan's got that reputation of being way too expensive.
What?
$3,000 for a graphics card? No, thank you.
Well, only 1,000, but
Still, for a graphics card, I could buy 2 normal NVIDIA cards for that, or I could buy 3 AMD cards.
I could buy Regret the Van for $1,000.
Hey!
The actual one. Not your actual good van. I think that's about what the down payment was on Regret. Alright, in any case, enough about digressing about all the things you could buy instead of a Titan graphic card. Let's talk Ryzen.
Okay.
This is an article that I'm not entirely sure what we're supposed to learn from it. Other than the fact that a lot of the rumors that were coming out before about what Zen is being confirmed true. The real biggest thing to note on this release about actual information, this is now actual information we're talking about, not rumors. Lord knows we've talked a lot about rumors over the years. What seems like, how long have we been talking about Zen?
For quite some time.
50 years? 60 years? Something like that?
What, Zen...
It's like Noah came through the Red Sea and predicted Zen on one of the 10 Commandments. And we've been gossiping about it ever since.
Yeah, no, Zen has been a long time coming. Now let's see if AMD can actually pull this off and not screw up.
Now, here's one thing that has me a little concerned. First off, unfortunately, this article does not talk about the performance. What it does talk about is the actual chip size. The chip for Zen is smaller, but the physical size is. The nanometers that it's manufactured at is not. It's the same. It's 14 nanometers, just like whatever Intel chip competitor A is. But let's be honest, it's an Intel chip. If I had to guess based on these specs, probably a Core i5. No, it has to be a Core i7. Because that's 8 threads. Whatever, irrelevant.
Mm-hmm.
So it's manufactured at 14 nanometers, so it's not like they're fitting more into a smaller space. But there is just less of the chip. It's 44 millimeters. Whatever chip competitor A is 49 millimeters.
Yeah, I'm looking through this. It's okay. It's more L2 cache, same L3 cache. CPP, which is measured in nanometers, is actually. I'm looking at this going, it's like some of this is actually impressive that they shrunk it down, but others it's like, well, you can only shrink a chip down so far, then you start having heat issues. And now I'm kind of curious about that. How does this chip perform thermally compared to competitor A?
Yeah, it's okay. AMD has already released a chip that was mandatory water block. That's nothing to them now.
Yeah, let's hope that this is not a mandatory water block chip.
I'm pretty sure if it was anything as comical as the 230 watt TDP chip, that rumors would have been screaming and laughing about it already.
Yeah. So we may actually be seeing a processor that is a genuine thing, a genuine competitor to.
Thing.
Yeah.
100% certified. Real.
Now the question is has AMD? I want to see more. This is all nice and all well and good. The L2 cache being bigger is something. You will see small performance increase from that, but
yeah, that's helpful. And so is everything else. The question I have is then, okay, so it's manufactured, it's manufactured at 14 nanometers. What was then sacrificed?
At that level, would be looking at the amount of space between the traces at the 14 nanometer level. So they've probably sacrificed some of the heat conductive spaces. If you've ever looked at a processor die,
Hooray!
There's certain areas where there is nothing there. It's just an open space. One, because either couldn't figure out how to put something there, or they had to leave it open, otherwise the chip will cook itself. So they've shrunk that. They probably shrunk the spaces between the traces.
So, unfortunately, the thing is that when I look at AMD, where AMD stands out as a strength to me, unless it actually does compete with Intel well enough, where it stands out as a useful tool from a builder's perspective is as a decent system on a chip. For the longest time, I always plan out what is the cheapest I can build a gaming rig that is as powerful as, and my benchmark's always been the Xbox One. Probably soon the my benchmark's gonna end up being the PS4 Pro. But regardless.
Reasonable benchmarks to aim for.
So, I mean, the CPU power itself it just needs to hit like a bare minimum, because there's not much CPU power that's needed for just single application gaming. It's a different story if you're doing multiple application gaming where you have something like an OBS running in the background, a chat monitoring system, some sort of wacky this and that running as well. But just as far as, what can game Crisis 10,000,046 better, your Xbox or this rig, the CPU is almost irrelevant. Almost. Lately, I've been able to use AMD because that has started to become an issue. They've started to fall so far behind that it's no longer useful. That even the Core i3 I have over here sitting in a mini tower performs better than most AMD chips. So the CPU needs to perform better. What's more interesting to me is the GPU they're sticking on with it. That's more interesting. And that will always end up being more interesting unless AMD pulls out a miracle. Because just thinking of getting like R7 450 grade graphics along with a quad-core processor on one chip, that would be so nice. Even if you pick up that processor for like $200. Because that could easily do mid-range gaming, throw in maybe another $100 450, have them crossfire together, and you'd be off to the races. And that could be where AMD takes back the crown for being the budget build processor again. I still can't believe they lost that crown to frickin' Celerons.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Ow. Well, okay, budget build would be nice, and I think it would be a great start if they could take that back from Intel. The Celerons have always been a cheap throwaway chip for Intel. They've been literally, the Celerons are the parts bin rejects.
I know. And AMD couldn't beat performance per dollar on those.
So, what I really want to see AMD go after is go back after the high-end iCore 7s.
Yeah.
Give Intel a run for the money there. Go after the enterprise markets again.
Well, unfortunately, there hasn't been much rumors about what the Zen architecture plans on doing in the Xeon market. But early benchmarks that AMD's been leaking, and granted, it's AMD's benchmarks, so, you need to have a bowl of salt with you when you're reading them. But they were competed against Broadwell E. Not Broadwell. The enthusiast level parts. The 6 and the 8 core processors. The $1,000 i7 Blacks. Which, oddly enough, are processors nobody's built with in a while. Only the crazy people do.
Yeah. Well, as you said it yourself, the processor is now becoming more and more irrelevant as to what it is.
Yeah.
What's there.
It pretty much only matters in what I would call super rigs.
Mm-hmm. It would also matter if you have a game that is more processor intensive. That there's a lot of not just poor coding such as Terra. Oh wait, did I say that?
I didn't softly say that. What are you talking about?
But I mean games that have a very complicated physics engine.
Space Engineers,
any of the Space Engineers clones that have complicated physics engines. That's the word I was looking for. Would benefit from a faster and more powerful processor.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of, competing with the Broadwell E's and soon to be Skylake E's, which I'm wondering when those are coming out. That's got to be soon. That Skylake E would exist. Actually, one thing I should look up.
When those are coming out?
Yeah. Well, that also means new Xeons would come out.
Okay.
Because when an E series comes out, the EX series follows pretty much at the same time, and that's the Xeon series. And then I don't know when the EXX series would launch. I think Intel actually, oddly enough, has given up for the most part on EXX series. Those are the ones that support 4 sockets.
Well, yeah. At that point, what are you doing that you need
Supercomputers.
Except for our current supercomputer setups now, or the topologies, isn't one machine with everything in it. It's one little machine that has enough to make it a computer, and then thousands of those bundled together.
Yeah, but quad socket boards, you build them in a small space. That means you can have 4 sockets in a one use space. That means 8 sockets in a 2 use space, and you just keep stacking that up. And how did we get on supercomputers?
Good question.
All right,
that's not a cost-effective way of doing it. You can just go get a bunch of Raspberry Pis and network them together, and boom, you got a little supercomputer cluster.
Except when you build a supercomputer, you're building for a specific need, and then at that point, you might need x86 architecture more than you need ARM.
Well, that's always the flip side. The little Pi clusters are always just for shits and giggles.
Yeah, we're also talking about people who are actually building supercomputers. The thing is that the moment you talk about someone building a supercomputer, they are either some idiot in a basement doing it for the lulz and have no money, or some sort of mega corporation or a government that their budget is a number that you can't even name off the top of your head.
Yeah. Well, actually, I think the current supercomputer market really is being used by weather forecasts, and they still get it wrong.
Weather forecast, oil research. Let's move on.
Yes.
All right, we are running out of time, so we're gonna have to hold off on the amazing STX builds for another day. I have to talk about our last story on the list, which is just more proof that the RGB disease is spreading to everything.
You had to go find an RGB hard disk.
No. It's not a hard disk. It's not a hard disk. It's an SSD.
When you ask a computer, what's my storage device, it will always say, oh, this is the hard disk.
But it's an SSD.
It's still... Why does an SSD need RGB?
Why not? Why not?
I mean, it was bad enough that I was watching earlier today, that RGB RAM is now a thing, and apparently that was a thing, that was a race to make it a thing. I wasn't even aware of that, because that's just like, why bother with RGB RAM? Wouldn't an RGB motherboard be enough? RGB fans.
Nope.
Power supply. We don't find out that the power supply is RGB.
Let's
be RGB.
Is there anything if there's anything we've missed? We now have the storage drive. We have the motherboard. We have the RAM. Thanks to Asus, we have the hard drive, or the graphic card. We have LED strips that are RGB, thanks to Asus.
RGB LED is nothing new. The strips and add-on
But they're
lights,
controlled by the motherboard. And that's the important thing in all this.
I'm still not really counting that as anything new. Systems.
I am just going down the checklist to make sure that RGB has fully infected the computer.
No, Unjust Banana. No.
Yes. RGB power cords. RGB USB ports.
The only thing that hasn't been RGB'd yet, because there are dying...
Unjust Banana, RGB mouse pads do exist. You did not know there was an RGB mouse pad, did you?
No, I did not, and now I am more disgusted that I know that they exist. The only thing that I have not heard mentioned yet is an RGB optical drive.
That's the only one I don't know if it exists. I'm pretty sure it's not going to.
The optical drives are going by the wayside.
Yep.
I could see maybe an RGB optical disk drive as an external disk drive.
It doesn't matter. I mean, look.
Of course Razer would do.
Of course it's
RGB
Razer. Why are you surprised? I mean, they did the RGB headphones.
Yes, and I actually have a pair of those.
They're terrible. I hate these things. Because this fucking thing broke out of it. Anyway. RGB dial-up modem. No.
Dial-up has been long since dead. So an RGB route...
Well, I mean, Razer did jokingly say they were going to build an RGB toaster. Complete with colored butter.
Well then.
I don't think there's an RGB webcam yet. I don't think there's an RGB monitor yet, but give it time, and I'm sure someone will make an actual monitor with RGB lighting on it somewhere. For all I know, Asus already has it, and I just haven't been bothered to make myself cringe with it.
The only place I really could see that they would put RGB lighting on a monitor, which by its nature is already somewhat RGB compliant, the fact that it's already displaying red, blue, green, is actually behind the monitor as like accent lighting.
Yeah, either behind the monitor or underneath the monitor to light up the stand. I know I've seen like some Acer monitors do that, like shine a red light down on their own stand, and which would make you look at the monitor long enough to realize that it's an Acer and then run away from it like it was the Black Death.
Yeah. So that's the only, maybe the power light can get RGBized.
Already there. There's an RGB case out there.
Oh, I'm not. Well, yeah. That's no surprise, actually.
I don't think there's an RGB SATA cable yet.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we have successfully broken Regret the Van here with everything that is being RGB'd up.
Yeah, it's RGB-itis.
It is. But in any case, that's going to be it for us today. Thank you, Regret, for joining me today. You can find him over at twitch.tv/regret_the_van. You can, of course, find me at twitch.tv/eagle_falcon. Take care, everyone! Rest well. We'll see from you next week at some point.